Now then. Welcome to Reviews on Realism. This is Nick. Today I'm going to be reviewing a Ken Loach film. Ken Loach, I'd like to talk about him a bit first, because I used to be a big fan of Ken Loach, but I had no interest in politics back then. I think I just liked the feeling of his film. Things like Kes, his earlier stuff, The Big Flame, they are very political films, but I had no idea about that back then. And now, as I've become more politically interested, which I fucking wish I hadn't done, because it just takes over your life and you can't stop thinking about it. But now I'm watching some of his newer films, and I just think that now they're 90% politics, 10% character, and I don't think that's a good thing. And I think it started around this time when Carla's song came out. And I don't think I don't think it's the fault of Ken Loach or Paul Laverty. I think it's a general thing that people just aren't writing characters anymore, which just makes it even more peculiar when Ken Loach is complaining about Marvel films when they have spent like 2 hours on an origin story that's just the first act. You spend 2 hours getting to know a character, and Ken Loach is like, hey, Marvel films are doing everything. No, you're making films that are just a message. They're 90% message, 10% character, Ken. Get real. Anyway, I think that problem started around the time of this film, '96. I think. I don't know. I'm starting to put together a list so I can go back through and document how this has changed, how social realism has changed over the years, and how the view of working class people has become quite sneery. I think they're no longer people that are interesting. They're just people to be laughed at, or they're a political cause that has no character, like Ken Loach's new stuff. Anyway, Carla's song is a strange love story between a Glaswegian bus driver and a Nicaraguan refugee. So first off, George. We see George in his everyday life. He's a bus driver and he's a free spirit. This is all we'll ever know about this character. He doesn't like authority and he basically just doesn't give a shit. There's a point where he kidnaps a taxi driver, and this is supposed to be all banter and funny, and he just ruins someone's livelihood for a laugh.
Professional courtesy, you're supposed to be a professional driver.
The passenger here could have been walking in front of that bus.
Look at my back light.
Knocked him
Look at my
down.
fucking back light, sorry, you fuck. You use your mirrors.
By the way, your printer's fucked off.
Oh, you mean shit, get back here.
At one point, he's driving through town and he just slams on and decks all these old people, because that's what you do. That's what you do if you're a free spirit. You just do things for no reason. He pursues this girl. She's not interested. He follows her into her flat, breaks in, gets her kicked out of the flat because he's a free spirit, and he just likes knocking biddies over and stuff, and he's all like, hey, I'm just concerned about the lass. When she can't explain, he flat out says in one scene that he can't explain. I don't really understand any of this. Chasing this girl around just because he doesn't care. And you get like this Ken Loach thing of where he's on the bus at one point and someone hasn't paid, and the bus conductor gets on and asks for a ticket, and the bus conductor is a flat out Nazi. Like in every Ken Loach film, anyone who's a part of the system, anyone who has a job, who doesn't just flaunt their job by getting off the bus. Or at one point, George drives the bus up into the hills to go on a date with this girl that he's basically forced into loving him. He drives up into the hills with the bus and then gets it stuck, and he just doesn't care. Because you're either that, or you're a Nazi.
Just you get back in your cabin, driver.
In Ken Loach's will, but he hates Marvel films because there's too much good and evil in there. How do you make sense of any of this? So anyway, George starts this relationship with this girl, and it turns out she has a troubled past, and he wants it explained, and it's to do with where she came from. It's a war-torn country where she came from, so he just suddenly says, well, we've got to go there then. And he knows full well that the reason that she's troubled is because her boyfriend's there. And then when they get there, they go searching for a boyfriend, and then find the boyfriend, and he's like, oh no, what happens now? Well, I wasn't expecting this to happen. What is wrong with this man? He's just mental. His character is completely mental, and we're supposed to like him just because he's a free spirit, and he gives no thought to anything. There's no sort of character arc. It doesn't get to the end of the film, then he's like, maybe I should start thinking about what I do before I do it. It just happens, and it's not. I don't understand what happened in this film. Having said all that, I did think the last 10 minutes was quite moving, but it kind of had nothing to do with the bus driver because he'd fucked off by then. So I don't get what's going on in this film. The love story was so the amount of time that he spends pursuing her and running around, and you only see him one time when he's not being a dick at work, and he's fixing a motorbike, and that's it. You don't find out anything else about him through the whole film. You find out a bit about her, but just that she's troubled. That's it. There's not really a lot of character in here. There's not really a lot going on. Sometimes I see films like this and I just think, why did no one question this? Like, why is there no character? Why is there no character? Why is the main character nuts? He is just mental. But it's fine in this film because he's not a Nazi. So that's how it's differentiated. So don't watch Marvel films because they have good guys and bad guys, and you can't have that. That's ruining everything. But watch Ken Loach films because the man in No Job Centre's a Nazi. And if you don't have a job, you're a national hero. So anyway, 6 out of 10. Some of the acting early on, I guess, was all right. Even these situations are so contrived there. They don't really feel that realistic in the same way that Kes did. They don't. I think there's a thing in films like Kes and Quadrophenia where you get the impression that they've not really directed the actors, and they're not all actors. They've just sort of let them live in front of the camera. That's when you get that realism, where you're just letting something happen. You aren't forcing it, and it seems that a lot in these films that they are. Like in Paul Lavitt's writing, I started watching I, Daniel Blake, and before even these dialogue on the black screen at the beginning, and before the thing has even started, after the first few lines, I knew exactly what was going to happen in that scene. The dialogue is it's so predictable, and life isn't, because not everyone's on the same page when you're talking to people. Everyone has a different agenda. Everyone has their life to live, and they come in and out, and everyone passes by each other. They don't do this bouncing back and forth thing that's so easy to write and so easy to. The dialogue in it isn't. It's not an overheard conversation. It's a genre. Social realism is now a genre. So you write dialogue in a specific way, in the way that you would in a film noir. You don't listen to a conversation and then put it there. That's where we are now, and that's what started. That was around this time, I think, 96. 97, when there was that big surge in British films. And I'm not sure why that is. Maybe the big surge came from Hollywood money, and so we started to get a more Hollywoodized version of British cinema. But I'm gonna look into that later. But anyway, Carla's song, you might like it. I don't know. I didn't think much of it. But it's available to watch on Amazon Prime if you've got that account. There's a link below, so you just click there and watch it if you've got the time. That's about all I have to say on that. That's about all I've got to say about that matter. Bye! Now then, if you liked video, then click subscribe. If you didn't like it, well then bug off. No, don't really subscribe anyway.